Where is the body of Alexander the Great? The honest answer is stranger than any tomb hunter will admit, because you have been walking over him for decades. While everyone searched underwater, the King of Kings was sitting 35 feet beneath a public park in Alexandria. But before he ended up under that grass, his corpse took the strangest road trip in ancient history. In June of 323 BC, Alexander died in Babylon at 32. The textbooks say his generals fought over the empire. They leave out the weirder fight, the one over his body, because whoever held the body held the luck of the empire. Here is the part. The survey courses skip. Alexander's corpse did not rot. His embalmers, according to the ancient accounts, lowered him into a vat of white honey and sealed the lid. Honey is antimicrobial. It pulls water out of bacteria, basically starving anything that tries to feed on flesh. For 2 years, he sat in that golden bath while his engineers built the carriage. And what a carriage! 64 mules, a gold roof, ionic columns, a jeweled net hung from the ceiling. It was a rolling temple, and it rolled at about 3 miles a day. 3 miles a day, so who would be reckless enough to hijack a dead god in broad daylight? The destination was Macedon, the family tomb, the proper homecoming. You'd assume the generals respected that. They did not. In 321 BC, the carriage was creaking through Syria when Ptolemy I, Alexander's childhood friend, now satrap of Egypt, staged the first imperial hijack in recorded history. He met the procession near Damascus with an army. He did not ask. He took the body, turned the mules south, and drove the empire's luck home to Egypt. Perdiccas, the regent, chased him. Perdiccas died in the Nile. Here's the twist. They leave off the syllabus. Alexander was not buried in Alexandria first. For 40 years, he lay in Memphis, the old pharaonic capital, inside a sarcophagus that was not even his. The Egyptologist Chris Naunton makes the case that Ptolemy slipped Alexander into a coffin already carved for Nectanebo II, the last native pharaoh, who had fled before finishing his own tomb. So the Macedonian conqueror wore an Egyptian king's stone skin. It was political theater carved in basalt. The Greek heir, dressed in pharaoh's clothes, blessing a foreign throne. That sarcophagus Nectanebo's still exists. It sits today in the British Museum, scratched, repurposed, the lid long gone. But it is empty. Somewhere between Memphis and Alexandria, the body moved again. Ptolemy II built him a proper tomb in the new capital, called it the Soma, and for 600 years emperors visited it like a shrine. Julius Caesar wept there. Augustus broke the nose of the mummy by accident. Caligula stole the breastplate. And then, sometime after the 3rd century, the Soma vanishes from the record entirely. The strangest part doesn't come until the river. But the records tell a different story about where the body went next. Ptolemy II built the new tomb at GPS 0, the exact crossroads of Alexandria's 2 main streets, the Canopic Way and Soma Street. That intersection was chosen on purpose. Every road in the city pointed at the dead king. The Soma wasn't a quiet shrine tucked behind a temple. It sat at the bullseye of a planned grid, the way you'd plant a flag in the middle of a chessboard. Whoever ruled Egypt ruled from beside his bones. For 300 years, Roman generals treated that tomb like a battery they'd come, touch the glass, walk out, feeling like world conquerors. Julius Caesar made the pilgrimage. Then in 30 BC, a fresh victor named Octavian, soon to be Augustus, arrived right after defeating Cleopatra. Suetonius records what happened next in plain Latin. Augustus leaned down to kiss the mummy's face. A piece of Alexander's nose broke off in his hands. The future emperor of Rome stood there holding a flake of a 300-year-old dead Macedonian. That should tell you what kind of object this was. Not a relic behind glass, a touchable trophy. 69 years later, Caligula sailed to Alexandria and walked straight into the Soma. He left with Alexander's breastplate strapped to his own chest. He wore it back to Rome and used it in a military procession, the way a kid wears a dead father's watch. You'd think someone would have stopped him. Nobody did. The body had become public property. Anything on it was fair game for the next strongman who showed up with enough soldiers. But the strangest theft happened from inside Egypt itself. In 89 BC, Ptolemy X was broke. The dynasty was bleeding cash. Mercenaries needed paying, and the king looked around for something heavy and gold. He picked the sarcophagus. He had Alexander's solid gold coffin melted down for coins. Then, to cover the move, he commissioned a replacement, a transparent coffin carved from rock crystal, basically a clear glass case. Tourists like Augustus and Caligula were looking at Alexander through see-through stone. The gold version, the one every history book pictures, had already been spent. So picture the situation by the 1st century AD. The most famous corpse in the world is lying in a glass box, at the dead center of the richest port city on the Mediterranean, in a tomb that emperors visit like a pilgrimage site. The body is missing a nose chip and a breastplate. The original coffin is circulating as small change. And then sometime in the next 200 years, the whole tomb disappears. No demolition order, no funeral. The Soma simply stops appearing in the records. Something erased it. Here's the thing: the Soma didn't fall to one disaster. It fell to 3, stacked on top of each other like a slow-motion mugging. Most accounts blame an earthquake and move on. Wrong. The records show a tsunami, a quake, and a religious purge hitting Alexandria inside a single human lifetime. Archaeologist Jean-Yves Empereur calls it a triple threat extinction event for the city's pagan landmark. The tomb everyone visited didn't vanish. It was buried, shaken, and finally erased on purpose. Start with the water. July 21st, 365 AD. A massive quake off Crete pushes a tsunami straight into Alexandria's harbor. Ancient writer Ammianus Marcellinus says ships were tossed onto rooftops. The royal quarter, the rich, low-lying neighborhood where the tomb stood, got swamped. Foundations cracked. Streets sank. Then, aftershocks gnawed at the structures for decades. You'd assume a marble mausoleum could ride that out, but the Soma sat barely above sea level, on soft delta silt. Each tremor pushed it a little further into the mud. The crystal coffin was now in a wet basement. Here's the twist nobody mentions. A century and a half earlier, the Roman Emperor Septimius Severus had already sealed the tomb shut. Around AD 200, he walled off the entrance, irritated that tourists were chipping off souvenirs and reading the secret books Alexander supposedly kept inside. Think about what that means. By the time the tsunami hit, the Soma was already a closed building. No daily visitors, no priests inside, no one routinely checking the roof. A sealed, sinking landmark in a flooded quarter is a landmark nobody is maintaining. It was halfway gone before the water arrived. Then came the kill shot. In 391 AD, Emperor Theodosius banned paganism across the empire. Alexandria's mob took it as a license. They tore down the Serapeum, the city's other great temple, that same year. A king god in a crystal box was the next obvious target. And within 9 years, the silence is total. Around 400 AD, the Christian preacher John Chrysostom delivers the line that ends the story. Tell me, where is the tomb of Alexander? His tomb, even his own people know not. He's not mourning, he's mocking. That sentence is the closing bracket on 700 years of imperial pilgrimage. A bishop, standing in Antioch, using the missing corpse as proof that pagan gods die too. The triple threat worked. Quake softened it, tsunami flooded it. The purge gave permission to finish it. Mini-loop closed, that's what erased the Soma. But Chrysostom's gloat hides a problem. If the tomb was destroyed in plain sight, why did medieval travelers keep arriving in Alexandria, asking locals to take them there? They kept showing up for centuries, and the locals kept pointing at something. A stone fragment, cut from Egyptian granite, sits in a Venetian basement under St. Mark's Basilica. Egyptian granite, in Venice. The textbook says it was hauled back from Alexandria in 828 AD as a leftover from the rescue of St. Mark the Evangelist's body, pious souvenir. Nothing more. Wrong. The fragment's measurements line up, millimeter for millimeter, with a sarcophagus already covered in this story. The one carved for Nectanebo II, the one that held a different body. The saint the Venetians stole may not be a saint at all. Here's what everyone expects. Christianity sweeps Alexandria around 400 AD. Mobs burn pagan shrines. A Macedonian war king buried under a transparent coffin becomes target number 1. So the priests guarding him do the only thing that keeps him breathing as a relic: they rebrand. They peel off the Macedonian label and slap on a Christian one. Alexander goes into the ground. Saint Mark the Evangelist conveniently comes out of it, in the same district. At roughly the same moment, 2 tombs swap names, and only one body is actually under the floor. The Venetian half of the story is well documented and weirdly specific. In 828 AD, 2 merchants, Buono and Rustico, sail into Alexandria, bribe the custodians, and smuggle a corpse out under a layer of salted pork to scare off Muslim inspectors. They claim it's Saint Mark. They bring back the body, a sealed sarcophagus, and loose masonry fragments. Venice builds a basilica over it. The problem is Mark, by every early Christian account, was burned to ash by a Roman mob in 68 AD. There is no intact Mark body to steal in 828, so whose body did the merchants actually smuggle out under that pork? The relic was a skin suit. Egyptologist Andrew Chugg ran the measurements on that Venetian masonry fragment and found it matches the Necta Nebo, the second sarcophagus in the British Museum, the exact one Alexander was laid into. Then, the smoking gun. In a Venice basement, a relief carving was identified showing the 8-pointed Macedonian star, the royal symbol of Alexander's house. Not a Christian motif. Not Egyptian Christian. Macedonian. The body the merchants smuggled out under pork wasn't the evangelist. It was the king, wearing a saint's name for 1,000 years. Which means the answer to, "Where is Alexander?" may have a postal code in northern Italy. 40,000 worshippers a year walk past him without knowing it. The Venetian theory is clean. The masonry numbers fit. The star relief is sitting there in stone. But it doesn't square with the other lead, the one the locals in Alexandria never stopped pointing at. The medieval pilgrims kept arriving in the city, asking for the tomb, and someone there kept showing them something. Not in Venice, under their feet. And then, a Greek archaeologist named Pepi Papakosta did something nobody else would. She ignored the harbor. She ignored Venice. She looked at a quiet patch of grass in the middle of modern Alexandria, the Shalalat Gardens, a place where people walk their dogs, and she said, "The palace district is under there. Not lost, not drowned, just buried, the way every old city buries itself, one street level at a time. 35 feet of accumulated Alexandria, stacked on top of the royal quarter like a lid." Here's what most people miss. Cities don't disappear. They get paved over. Every century leaves about a meter of fill collapsed, mud brick, garbage, road grade, new foundations on old. Run the math on 2,000 years, and you get exactly the depth Papakosta has been digging through since 2009. 15 years. One park. And the textbook said this whole quarter was gone, scrubbed out by earthquakes and Arab rebuilds. Papakosta read the same sources and read them differently. The palace district wasn't erased. It was filed underground, alphabetically, by year. The first crumb came up almost immediately. A marble Alexander, life-sized, broken at the legs, the face still wearing that famous tilted gaze. You don't carve a statue like that and leave it in a random suburb. You leave it where the powerful people are temples, palaces, tombs. The statue was a pin on the map, but pins don't equal vaults. Critics said fine, a statue, so what? The royal quarter was huge. Finding a marble head doesn't put you on top of the Soma. You could be 100 meters off and never know. So what finally turned a hunch into hard shapes in the ground? Then 2026 happened. A team running electrical resistivity tomography, basically a deep ground scan that reads the dirt's pushback to a current lit up 14 anomalies under the gardens. Hard shapes, right angles. And one of them is being described as a huge carved tunnel running on the same axis as Alexandria's ancient crossroads. The same crossroads marked 2 chapters back as the city's GPS 0. The scans aren't proving the tomb. They're proving something engineered, deliberate, monumental, sitting exactly where the Soma should be. So the Venetian fragment in a basement and the Alexandrian void under a park are now both real, both stubborn, and both pointing at the same body. One of them is wrong. Maybe both are partly right. A sarcophagus shipped, an empty chamber left behind. Papakosta's permit only covers a sliver of the gardens, and the tunnel sits just outside her grid. The shovel is 6 feet from the answer and waiting on a signature. The question now isn't where Alexander is. It's who gets to open the door first and what they find waiting on the other side. What if the question itself has been wrong for 2,000 years? Every search party, every diver, every permit application has asked the same thing: where is Alexander buried? But the textbook framing assumes one body, one name, one grave. The evidence stacking up in 2026 says otherwise. Cambridge historian Paul Cartledge put it bluntly: this spring, the underwater theory is dead. The harbor doesn't hold him, the park does. And the real puzzle now isn't location. It's the name on the label. Here's the number nobody quotes: 140 failed expeditions. That's the count National Geographic ran through last year. Every serious dig since Napoleon, every sonar sweep, every televised stunt. A meta-analysis of archaeological fatigue, and the pattern inside that pile of failures is the real signal. They all hit the same wall: modern Alexandria. Apartment blocks, sewers, a Ministry of Antiquities permit office sitting on top of the royal quarter. The body isn't hiding from archaeologists. The city is. Every failed dig drew the same boundary wherever the modern street grid runs. The shovels stop. But here's the twist nobody wants to say out loud. Alexandria is sinking, 3.2 millimeters a year, accelerating with sea level rise. That's roughly a foot per century, and the royal quarter is already 35 feet down. The math is brutal. The salt table is climbing into the strata where the tomb sits. Bronze corrodes, bone dissolves, inscriptions go to mush. Climate change isn't a future threat to this site. It's an active eraser, running right now while the permit paperwork shuffles between 3 ministries. Every monsoon season, a little more proof slips past recovery. And then 2026 happened. The crossroads. A team working the Royal Street intersection, the exact spot where the Canopic Way once crossed, pulled up paving stones aligned with the ancient grid, sealed under modern fill. That single find did what a century of underwater searches couldn't. It falsified the lost at sea consensus. He's not in the harbor. He never was. Which forces the harder question: if the Venetian relic really is a match and the Alexandrian void really is intact, then we don't have one tomb. We have 2 halves: a body filed under a saint's name and an empty chamber waiting under a park. So the verdict, after 2,000 years, is strange and oddly satisfying. The Soma was never destroyed. It was filed. Filed under 35 feet of city in Alexandria. Filed under a saint's name in Venice. The Alexandria National Museum already keeps a gallery reserved for the day a sarcophagus comes up. The basilica won't allow a DNA swab, and the Nile keeps rising. Whoever opens their door first, the Italian altar or the Egyptian tunnel, will not just find a body. They'll settle whose city, whose church, whose nation gets to claim the man who once claimed the world.